A few years ago, when I turned 78, I began to notice something that truly worried me. Small lapses I hadn't had before. I found it hard to remember where I had left the keys. I forgot important appointments, and even, on one occasion, I forgot my daughter's birthday. At first I thought it was something normal for my age, a passing distraction. But little by little, those moments became more frequent and more unsettling. One morning, after getting lost while trying to recall a route I knew by heart, I decided it was time to seek help. I made an appointment with my neurologist, a serene man with a calm voice who welcomed me with an understanding smile. I told him about my lapses, my fear that it might be the beginning of irreversible decline, and my worry about losing the independence I valued so much. He listened without interrupting, nodding now and then, like someone who understands more than you say. And then, in an almost confidential tone, he told me, "We can't control everything, but there are things we can do to protect our brain. And the best part is they start every morning." He explained that the way we begin the day can make a huge difference in our mental health, our memory, and even our life expectancy. It wasn't about medications or costly therapies, but about small habits anyone could adopt. Simple actions, backed by science, that not only strengthen the mind, but also improve mood, energy, and mental clarity. I remember that as he spoke, I thought I might have found a key, a way to slow the deterioration and, who knows, even gain years of full life. From then on, I adopted his morning routine, and over time, I began to notice surprising changes. Today I want to share it with you, step by step, so that you too can care for your brain and your well-being, no matter how old you are now. Because believe me, it's never too late to start. Before we continue, I'd love for you to tell me in the comments, how many years old are you, and where are you watching from? Breathe deeply to oxygenate your brain. After talking to me about the importance of hydration, my neurologist looked at me intently and said something that surprised me. "Now, give your brain some air." He didn't mean going outside or opening the windows, though that helps too, but something much simpler and more powerful: breathing. He explained that upon waking, most of us breathe shallowly, quickly, almost as if we didn't want to bother our own body. And that short breathing means less oxygen enters the lungs, and therefore less oxygen reaches the brain. Oxygen is the main fuel for our neurons. Without enough oxygen, the mind feels heavy, slow, like it's hard to get it going. That's why he taught me a slow, deep breathing exercise to do every morning, right after drinking the glass of water. The exercise is simple. First, I sit on the edge of the bed, with my back straight and my feet flat on the floor. I close my eyes and place one hand on my abdomen. I inhale through my nose while slowly counting to 4, feeling the air fill my belly, not just my chest. Then, I hold that air in while I count to 4 again. After that, I exhale through my mouth slowly, counting to 6, emptying the abdomen and feeling my whole body relax. My neurologist recommended repeating it for 3 minutes. At first I thought it was too long, but I realized that in those 3 minutes, my mind went from half asleep to feeling clear, awake, and light. It's like turning on a lamp in a dark room. He explained that this deep breathing activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps reduce the tension accumulated during the night and prepares the brain to concentrate better. It also improves circulation, which means more oxygen and nutrients reach the neurons. I remember a morning when I woke especially worried about a family problem. My mind was racing and my chest felt tight. I decided to do the breathing exercise before facing the day, and to my surprise, that feeling of anxiety softened. I could think more clearly and handle the situation more calmly. Over time, this habit became as natural as washing my face. 3 minutes is nothing, but the difference it makes is enormous. Today, every morning, as I inhale and exhale deeply, I think I'm giving my brain the best way to start the day, free of tension, full of oxygen, and ready to work with clarity. Just as water is the first nourishment my mind receives, deep breathing is the first gift I offer it. It's my way of reminding it that, even as the years advance, I can still care for it and keep it strong. Gentle movement upon waking. When I finished the 3 minutes of deep breathing, my neurologist told me something that stuck in my memory. Now that you've awakened your mind, it's time to wake your body, because one doesn't work well without the other. He explained that during the night, our body remains still for many hours. The muscles, the joints, and even blood circulation run at a slow pace. If we get up and immediately begin the day's tasks without gradually activating the body, we're forcing an engine that's still cold. This not only raises the risk of falls or injuries, but also affects mental clarity, because it takes longer for blood to reach the brain efficiently. His recommendation was simple. Devote between 5 and 10 minutes to gentle, mindful movement each morning. It's not about intense exercise, but about stretching, mobilizing, and waking every part of the body. I adopted a very simple routine. First, still sitting on the bed, I make slow neck rotations to one side and the other, breathing deeply. Then I raise and lower my shoulders several times to release accumulated tension. After that, I stretch my arms upward as if I wanted to touch the ceiling, feeling my back lengthen. When I stand up, I walk slowly around the room, swinging my arms and moving my legs so the blood starts flowing better. Sometimes I take a few laps down the hallway or walk to the kitchen unhurriedly, feeling each step. This movement, minimal as it may seem, wakes up the joints and improves balance, crucial after 70. The neurologist told me that several of his patients who adopted this habit noticed less stiffness, better mood, and even fewer morning aches. As the body activates gently, it sends signals to the brain that it's time to get going, and that communication improves both energy and mental readiness. In my case, I noticed it a week after starting. Before, when I got up, I felt heaviness in my legs and a certain clumsiness in my gait, as if my feet didn't quite respond. Now, after stretching and moving, I feel lighter and more confident taking the first steps of the day. I also discovered that this moment is perfect for listening to the birdsong, feeling the light entering through the window, or simply being grateful for a new day. Because it's not just moving the body, it's also a way to move the spirit. Over time, I understood that this gentle movement is like slowly turning a car key before starting it. It primes the engine, warms the parts, and ensures everything works better. And in the human body, that means ready muscles, more flexible joints, and a brain that's awake and alert. Exercise your mind from the very start. When you think you're ready to begin the day, my neurologist would always add a phrase that made me reflect. Now that your body and your brain are awake, it's time to put them to work. He explained that just as a muscle stays strong if we use it, neurons also need activity to stay agile. After a night of rest, the brain is like a lamp that's off. It already has energy, but it needs a switch to fully light up. And that switch can be a small mental activity right at the start of the morning. It's not about complex tasks or hours of study, but a brief exercise that forces the neurons to work. It can be reading a few pages of a book, solving a crossword, doing a little mental math, or even recalling a list of things from memory. The important thing is that it involves attention, memory, and a little challenge. In my case, I adopted a very simple habit that works wonders for me. While I finish my glass of water or breathe deeply, I mentally review what I will do during the day. I don't do it by looking at a planner, but from memory. I try to recall what tasks I have pending, at what time I must do them, and whether there's anything special I can't forget. At first, it was a bit hard. Sometimes I drew a blank and had to check my notes. But over time, I noticed my memory began to respond faster and more precisely. And the best part is that mental clarity lasted throughout the morning. The neurologist told me that these kinds of exercises stimulate the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain in charge of planning, decision-making, and organizing ideas. And when that area activates early, the rest of the day flows with more order and fewer lapses. By contrast, he reminded me what happens when we begin the morning passively, without any mental stimulus. If the first thing we do is turn on the television or scroll mindlessly through the news on the phone, the brain remains in a passive reception mode. It doesn't work out, it isn't challenged, and it starts the day at a lower level of activity. Over time, this habit can make us react more slowly, find it harder to remember, and even feel more apathetic. One morning when I skipped this step, I noticed something curious. Although I was physically awake, my mind remained in a sort of lethargy. I didn't feel like talking, I couldn't organize my ideas well, and I even struggled to decide what to have for breakfast. It was a reminder that this small habit, barely 5 minutes long, can make the difference between a dim day and a day full of mental energy. That's why, every morning, I gift myself that moment to exercise my mind. It's like opening a window in a closed room. Fresh air comes in, light floods the space, and everything seems clearer. And though it may seem minor, I'm convinced it's one of the pillars that keep my brain strong and my memory alive. A breakfast that feeds your neurons. My neurologist, after talking to me about hydration, breathing, and movement, paused and smiled. Now that you've awakened your brain, let's give it the right fuel. He explained that just as a car can't run well if you put in poor quality fuel, the brain doesn't perform if what it gets at the start of the day is refined sugars and empty calories. And for a long time, that was my case. Strong coffee, white bread, sweet jam, and sometimes cookies. It was quick, cheap, and I admit, I liked it. But it didn't give me lasting energy. The neurologist told me about 3 kinds of nutrients my mornings urgently needed. Healthy fats, like those from avocado, olive oil, or fatty fish, which protect neuron membranes and make communication between them easier. Proteins, which help form neurotransmitters, those substances that transmit messages in the brain and keep us alert and focused. Antioxidants, present in fruits such as blueberries, strawberries, or blackberries, which protect brain cells from damage caused by stress and aging. He gave me practical examples so I'd have no excuses. A cup of cooked oats with a handful of nuts and seeds, accompanied by berries, an omelette of 2 eggs with spinach and a drizzle of olive oil, or a slice of whole grain toast with avocado and canned sardines. I decided to try it, and for 1 week I swapped the white bread and jam for oats with nuts and blueberries. The difference was surprising. I no longer felt that mid-morning energy crash, and my focus stayed steadier. Plus, my mood improved. The neurologist explained that refined sugars cause quick spikes and drops in blood glucose, which make the mind feel active for a few minutes, but then fall into a state of fatigue and scatter. In contrast, foods rich in healthy fats, proteins, and fiber keep energy more stable and nourish the brain consistently. I especially remember one morning when I had to resolve a complicated matter at the bank. Before, with my sugar-laden breakfast, I would have felt nervous, unfocused, and mentally slow. But that day, with a nutritious breakfast in me, I was surprised by how clearly I handled the numbers, how quickly I found answers, and how well I kept calm. Since then, my breakfast stopped being a mere formality and became an investment in my memory, my concentration, and my mood. And the best part is, it doesn't require exotic or expensive ingredients, only the decision to choose what truly feeds the brain. Today, I can say the biggest change wasn't in my body, but in my mind. Because when you feed it well from the morning, the whole day seems to flow with more clarity, and even the small decisions become easier. Keep a positive attitude from the moment you wake. My neurologist always insisted that brain health doesn't depend only on what we eat or how much we move. It's also deeply tied to how we think and feel. A positive emotional state, he told me, works like fertilizer for the brain. It stimulates the production of chemicals that favor memory, learning, and adaptability. He taught me a technique so simple that, at first, I doubted it could have any real effect. He said, "When you open your eyes in the morning, before getting up, think of 3 things you're grateful for." They don't have to be great achievements or extraordinary news. It can be something as simple as the smell of coffee, the light coming through the window, a pleasant conversation from the day before, or the fact of having one more day to live. The important thing is to pause a moment to recognize it. At first, I struggled to find those 3 things. On some grey days, my mind went straight to worries. But with a bit of practice, I began to notice that every morning, more reasons for gratitude appeared. And the curious thing is that, even on difficult days, this habit helped me start with a sense of calm and strength. I remember a morning when I had to face a delicate family problem. Instead of getting up anxious, I took a deep breath and thought, I'm grateful to have the opportunity to help, for having enough health to get around, and for the affection of the people around me. That simple reflection gave me a different perspective. I realized that, although I couldn't control every circumstance, I could control how I looked at them. My neurologist explained that this practice stimulates neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to create new connections and adapt. Positive emotions favor the release of dopamine and serotonin, neurotransmitters that improve mood, motivation, and creativity. In the long run, this habit strengthens the neural networks associated with well-being, making it more natural to maintain an optimistic attitude even in the face of challenges. I also noticed that by starting the day with gratitude, problems seemed less heavy. Not because they disappeared, but because my mind became more capable of facing them. It's as if, instead of carrying a backpack full of stones, I could rearrange the weight and keep walking more lightly. Today, my day doesn't truly begin until I do this small mental exercise. And I don't need to write it down or share it with anyone. It's enough to think it, feel it, and let that positive sensation set the tone for the hours to come. Because in the end, the way we open the morning influences how we live it, and also how we remember it. Connect with someone every morning. One of the things that most surprised me to hear from my neurologist was when he told me that talking to someone every morning could protect my brain as much as good nutrition or an exercise habit. He explained that social interaction activates multiple brain areas at the same time: memory, language, attention, empathy, and even creativity. It is, in his words, a complete gym for the mind, but without weights or machines. Human contact early in the day, even if brief, acts like an emotional and mental alarm clock. It can be a quick call to a family member, a greeting to a neighbor when you take out the trash, a voice message to a friend, or even chatting with the baker when you buy bread. What matters isn't the duration, but the genuine connection. My neurologist told me that among his older patients, those who kept an active network of relationships not only lived longer, but also preserved their mental sharpness and mood better. Prolonged loneliness is like a slow poison for the brain, he warned me. And I understood that the mind needs company just as the body needs nourishment. I started with something very simple. Every morning, while I have breakfast, I send a short message to a friend or a family member. Sometimes it's just a greeting. Other times I share a memory or a photo of something that made me smile. Over time, this turned into a chain of small conversations that brighten my mornings. I especially remember my neighbor Rose, who has lived alone for years. One day I decided to greet her from the window while we both watered our plants. That brief exchange became a habit, and now we tell each other how we slept, what we're going to do that day, or we simply wish each other good luck. Small as it seems, that moment changes the tone of the day for both of us. Science backs it up. Social interaction stimulates the production of oxytocin, a hormone that reinforces trust and reduces stress. Moreover, keeping up conversations exercises working memory, because it forces you to remember details of what the other person said before and to weave your responses. I noticed that when I skip this step, my morning is quieter and my mind takes longer to activate. But when I talk to someone, I feel my mental energy multiply, as if my brain received an extra boost to face the rest of the day. That's why I now consider human connection part of my brain care routine. It's not just a social gesture. It's a way of reminding my mind that I'm still part of something bigger than myself, and that at any age is powerful fuel for living with joy and clarity. Avoid what wears your brain down upon waking. When I told my neurologist that on some days I felt drained from the very first hour, he asked me to describe exactly what I did when I woke up. As I spoke, I realized those days tended to have something in common. They started with habits that, without my noticing, were stealing energy from my brain before the day had even begun. The first was looking at negative news the moment I opened my eyes. I had the habit of turning on the television or checking headlines on my phone while still in bed. Without realizing it, I started the day with images and words loaded with tension, conflict, and bad news. The neurologist explained that this habit immediately raises cortisol levels, the stress hormone, and that affects concentration, mood, and memory for hours. The second harmful habit was skipping breakfast. I thought nothing happened if I ate later, but my neurologist reminded me that the brain needs steady fuel to function well. Going several hours without eating after a whole night of fasting forces the body to use its reserves, which can cause mental fatigue and make early decisions slower and less precise. And the third, probably the most common nowadays, was staying in bed with the phone. I told myself I was just going to check a couple of messages or look at social media for a minute, but that minute turned into 20. The result? My posture remained passive, my mind received disordered information, and instead of starting with energy, I did so scattered and unfocused. One day I decided to break completely from the routine my neurologist had recommended. I got up late, watched the news, skipped breakfast, and spent half an hour with the phone in my hand. The rest of the day was a mess. I struggled to concentrate, forgot simple details, and had the sense of being behind my tasks, as if I never managed to catch up. It confirmed that those habits weren't harmless. They were wearing down my mental energy without my noticing. Now I have a simple rule. The first hours of the day are for activating, not exhausting. No negative news, no unnecessary fasting, and no getting trapped by the phone screen. Instead, I choose activities that prepare me for the day, not ones that steal it before it starts. My neurologist told me a phrase I never forgot. Don't let the world put its chaos into your head before you put your calm into it. And every morning, that's the goal. The power of mornings after 70. After everything my neurologist taught me, I understood that mornings are much more than the start of the day. They're the moment when we have the chance to decide how we want to live the hours ahead, and also how we want to age. Let's review together the 8 habits that transformed my mornings, and with them, my mind. First, smart hydration, so the brain wakes fresh and ready. Second, deep breathing, filling every cell with oxygen and clarity. Third, gentle movement, because activating the body is activating the mind. Fourth, early mental exercise, giving the neurons a challenge from the start. Fifth, feeding the neurons with a nutritious breakfast that keeps energy steady. Sixth, going out into daylight to synchronize the internal clock and keep mood high. Seventh, cultivating a positive attitude, finding reasons for gratitude the moment you wake. Eighth, connecting with someone, because company and conversation are food for the brain. And as a reminder, avoid what wears it down: negative news, prolonged fasting, and getting trapped in the phone. There's no need to make radical changes from one day to the next. What matters is starting, even with one of these habits, and letting them gradually become part of our lives. Because brain care isn't a sprint, it's a journey of consistency. I want you to remember something. It's never too late to start caring for your mind. It doesn't matter if you're 70, 80 or more. Every morning you wake is a new opportunity to do something good for yourself, for your memory, for your joy, and for your independence. We sometimes think great transformations require great sacrifices, but in reality, it's the small daily actions that build a stronger brain and a fuller life. And it all starts with something as simple as deciding that today you're going to care for yourself a little more than yesterday. So if today you have the blessing of waking up, you also have the opportunity to care for your mind. Make the most of that gift. Before I say goodbye, I want to invite you to tell me in the comments how many years old you are and where you're watching from. I'd love to get to know those who share this journey with me. And if this video was helpful, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to keep learning together how to live with more health, energy, and clarity. See you in the next video.